Hello everyone, movie recap here. Today we are going to recap The Shawshank Redemption. Andy Dufresne, a successful banker, is arrested for the murders of his wife and her lover and is sentenced to life imprisonment at the Shawshank prison. He becomes the most unconventional prisoner. Spoilers ahead. When Andy Dufresne was detained for the murders of his wife and her lover, he fell into a state of extreme sorrow. Andy had formerly been a prosperous banker. As he was given 2 consecutive life sentences at Shawshank State Prison, his entire world fell apart. No prisoner had ever managed to escape from Shawshank, which was renowned for being an impenetrable fortress. Inmates who had lived more of their lives behind bars than in freedom were housed within its desolate walls. They were blissfully unconscious of the changes the outside world had undergone while they were imprisoned. Andy withdrew into a self-imposed silence as soon as he arrived at Shawshank, separating himself from the other prisoners. He came into contact with Red, another prisoner, in this dark environment. Red, a jail smuggler of illicit goods, was also given a life sentence and had previously served 20 years in prison. They exchanged cryptic words after their first encounter. Andy declared his desire for a Rita Hayworth movie poster and a rock hammer. Red was perplexed by Andy's proposal and wondered whether he intended to use the tiny rock hammer to create an escape tunnel. Red was both intrigued and doubtful in reaction to Andy's cool demeanor and cryptic comments. Red also warned Andy about a group of dangerous prisoners known as the Sisters, who had their sights set on him in his bleak surroundings. Red made the decision to get Andy the required hammer despite the risk. Red was amazed at the rock hammer's small size, and it eventually arrived and realized that using it to tunnel through the prison walls would take an eternity. Andy's goals, however, were far from escape. He treasured the rock hammer as a way to carry on with his hobby of stone carving and found comfort in it as he tried to adjust to the difficult prison life. The conditions within Shawshank were appalling, and Andy maintained his stoic quiet. Tragically, Andy was subjected to a horrific ordeal in which he was sexually raped by a number of convicts, including the sinister sisters. Andy was subjected to torture for 2 excruciatingly long years, which left him physically and psychologically damaged. He did not, however, complain or seek retribution at any point during the entire ordeal. Andy and Red were 2 of the prisoners who were given the task of fixing the prison's roof one day. Hadley the guard was in charge of the project. Hadley was agitated and admitted that his deceased brother left him $30,000 but lamented the high taxes he would have to pay. Andy saw an opportunity and promised to help Hadley legally shield his inheritance from taxation because of his experience in finance. He asked for 3 beers for his fellow prisoners in exchange. The following day, a sliver of humanity could be seen amid the gloom as Andy's buddies experienced a rare moment of solace with chilled drinks on the jail patio. Due to his shrewdness and skill, Andy was given a special role in Shawshank. Andy made friends with the warden of the prison, Samuel Norton, who was struck by his intelligence and unshakable trust in the Bible. Andy was appointed assistant librarian under Norton's patronage and collaborated with the seasoned Brooks, who had been in charge of the library for decades. When Brooks was contemplating release one day and worried about his uncertain future outside, a terrible incident happened in the library. As a stark reminder of the toll Shawshank's seclusion exacted on its inmates, Brooks ultimately made the decision to terminate his life after becoming overwhelmed by the world's rapid changes. Warden Norton launched a program dubbed Inside Out, which purportedly sought to equip inmates with practical skills for life outside of jail. However, Norton used it as a tool to undercut experienced workers and collect kickbacks while using cheap jail labor for his personal gain. He continued his unscrupulous behavior by using a bogus business partner named Randall Stevens to launder large quantities of money. Andy discovered Norton's dishonest business activities thanks to their newfound friendship, and he secretly placed the relevant paperwork, a Bible, and other evidence in the jail safe. Later on, these records would be a powerful tool against Norton. A glimmer of hope was introduced to Shawshank with the entrance of Tommy, a fresh prisoner. Young and eager prisoner Tommy came to Andy with a special request. He wanted to finish high school. After his release, Tommy hoped to build a better life for himself, his wife, and their child. Surprisingly, Andy not only agreed to assist, but he also committed to teaching Tommy and helping him pass his GED exam. In addition to giving Tommy hope, Andy's zeal for learning began to inspire hope in the other prisoners who observed his unrelenting quest for knowledge. As Tommy continued his research, he couldn't help but wonder about Andy's own beliefs. Tommy approached Red when he learned that Andy had received a term for the deaths of his wife and her lover. Red grudgingly revealed the bleak story, accusing Andy of murder. However, Tommy couldn't get rid of the uneasy sensation he had. In his quest to learn the truth, Tommy came upon a tale from his time behind bars about another prisoner who had committed a crime similar to Andy's but under very different circumstances. It turned out that the person he had slain was the wife of a successful banker, a fact that had been kept from him at the time. The information shocked Tommy, prompting him to think twice. Tommy approached Andy with the information, eager to share this newfound hope with him. Andy was cautiously optimistic that this would hold the key to his vindication despite being mindful of the repercussions of such information. He was once again determined to be free because of his faith in the prospect of justice. Tommy went on to tell Warden Norton about this discovery since he thought he had found crucial information that could clear Andy. However, the warden ignored Tommy's concerns and instead planned a cruel ruse to silence him because he had no intention of letting Andy leave Shawshank. Norton, pretending to help Andy, enticed Tommy into a precarious situation and, in a premeditated maneuver, had him shot dead while making it seem as though Tommy was trying to help. Andy, who had dared to dream of a life beyond Shawshank's gates, was devastated by the awful loss of Tommy. The warden's merciless methods exposed the depths of his corruption, which strengthened Andy's resolve to flee. Andy's covert escape plot was now more focused than ever. Each night, he painstakingly chiseled away at the concrete prison walls while concealing the results of his work inside his cell. Over the course of this arduous and painful procedure, which lasted for 2 decades, he upheld his appearance of compliance with the prison's officials. It would turn out that Andy's getaway night was both daring and poetic. He gathered a few essentials, hid the entrance to the tunnel beneath a Rita Hayworth poster, crawled through a sewer pipe, and out into the dark freedom of the outer world. He managed to escape as a result of unshakable faith, endurance, and an unbreakable will. The jail staff was in a state of shock and disbelief the morning after Andy vanished. They were looking for explanations and looking for hints because of how massive the escape was. They found Andy's old clothes, a bar of soap, a comb, and the exact rock hammer he had used to break free in his former cell. They studied the little tunnel that had been skillfully carved through the strong walls of the prison, which revealed the full scope of Andy's cleverness. Beyond the confines of the prison, Andy's escape had a significant impact. With his newfound liberation, he set out on a trip that would not only free his physical self but also expose the complex web of lies Warden Norton had woven. Andy used his understanding of Norton's money laundering business and the concealed safe containing stolen money to leverage damaging evidence against the dishonest warden. He was able to extract roughly $2.95 million in laundered funds using the ruse of Randall Stevens thanks to his cleverness. In order to let Norton's illegally obtained wealth be laundered, Andy constructed the bogus name Randall Stevens, who he then assumed as his identity and vanished into the huge world outside Shawshank. The money served as a representation of his newly acquired independence as well as a tool to reveal the degree of the warden's wrongdoing. Andy took a risk by leaking the damaging documents to the media, exposing Norton's illegal conduct. The evidence of the warden's criminal activities rapidly overwhelmed the neighborhood newspapers and the authorities. The truth about the fraudulent activities at Shawshank started to come to light as a result, bringing shame upon Norton and his cohorts. Warden Norton watched as his carefully crafted facade fell apart as he became entangled in a web of his own design. He made the decision to commit suicide rather than face justice at the hands of the authorities when faced with the looming repercussions of his misdeeds. At Shawshank, Norton's death signaled the end of an era, and the institution was left to deal with the consequences of his deeds. In the meantime, Andy had successfully changed his identity to become Randall Stevens, guaranteeing his freedom from the constraints of prison. But his search for justice was far from over. He left a trail for Red, his closest friend in Shawshank, to follow as a final, symbolic act. Red discovered a box with a note and some cash hidden beneath a stone wall that was designated by a black stone. In the letter, Andy penned a sincere request for Red to find him in Zihuatanejo, a charming Mexican seaside town that was the setting for many of his dreams of beginning afresh. The letter was a symbol of hope's enduring strength, which had sustained Andy's unyielding resolve during his incarceration. The essence of their relationship and the tenacity of the human spirit were captured in Andy's message to Red. Hope is a good thing, maybe the best of all good things, and nothing good ever dies. Red was extremely moved by these remarks, and they motivated him to go out on a personal journey that would eventually lead him to the insight that, despite being elusive, hope might in fact be a motivating factor that went beyond the walls of Shawshank prison. Red's lengthy incarceration came to an end with his release from Shawshank. Despite his newfound independence, he discovered that he had trouble adjusting to life outside. He had spent more than 40 years in prison, so the outside world seemed strange and intimidating to him. The fast-paced, monotonous routine of jail life was in sharp contrast to the busy streets, fast-paced lifestyle, and loudness of the outside world. Red tried to find his place in a world that had changed without him, haunted by the ghosts of his past and the memories of people he had lost. His first desperation was similar to that of Brooks, the old librarian who eventually killed himself after being released. Red also experienced a sense of the weight of the world pressing down on him, and he began to seriously consider suicide. Red had lost hope until he made a promise to Andy during their time spent together in Shawshank. He would look for the lost wealth buried beneath a black stone wall in Zihuatanejo. Red set off on a voyage that would take him from the desolate walls of Shawshank to the sun-drenched coasts of Mexico, determined to keep his promise to his comrade. He discovered not only the financial treasure Andy had left for him beneath it but also the hope of a fresh start. The gorgeous beaches and clear waters of Zihuatanejo provided a stunning contrast to the brutal realities of jail life. Red could not help but get a sense of renewal and tranquility as he stood on the shores of Zihuatanejo and looked out at the great ocean. He had endured a difficult and protracted journey, but it had brought him to a tranquil and contented place. Red understood that he, too, could embrace the potential of a brighter future once he had the treasure in his possession and the memory of Andy's unflinching hope in his heart. We really hope you enjoyed today's recap of The Shawshank Redemption. Please leave a comment below on what you loved about the movie and why. Be sure to like the video and please don't forget to support our channel by subscribing so you don't miss any amazing content. Until next time, lights, camera, action. We look forward to seeing you in our next video.